This is the petition to modify probation filed by Melissa, is it Crowley? Thank you. You have to speak up.
Yes, it's Irish.
Thank you. This is Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2019-010838, agency number 2002-017-0000331. My name is Carl Engelman, Administrative Law Judge assigned to hear this matter. I won't ask the board members to identify themselves, having previously done so in the prior matter. Mr. Lee, would you state your appearance for the record?
Stanton Lee from the Office of the Attorney General, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Ms. Crowley, I think you heard me ask the previous petitioner if she understood that she could have been represented by counsel.
Yes.
Did you also understand that?
Yes.
Okay, and you heard me describe the process, the protocol that the board is following today?
Yes,
Okay, and you're ready to proceed?
I am.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lee.
A truncated opening, if you don't mind, board members and Your Honor. I am here under Government Code 11522 in a non-adversarial position, simply here to assist the board in making sure the board has sufficient information to make its decision here. Prior to beginning, I have presented a copy of the exhibits to the petitioner. It is an identical copy to the package which is before each of the board members, with the exception of an application and a proposed order for protective order relating to mental health treatment records under exhibit number 4 and number 5. And I have asked the court to seal those particular mental health treatment records, which include a psychological evaluation report and a psychotherapy, and multiple psychotherapy quarterly reports. With that, Your Honor, I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence the exhibits. The first one being exhibit number 1, which is a redacted petition for modification of probation dated December 1, 2018, with attachments, including multiple correspondences in support of the petition written by Sandra John, John, Pamela St. John, John, Gregory Long, Long, Andrew Coolidge, Coolidge, Captain Ryan Crowley, Croley, John and Judy Crowley, Croley, Stephanie Salse, Salse, and Sherry Osborne, Osbourne. And that is Exhibit 1, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Crowley, I'd asked you to take a look at these exhibits before we began the proceedings. Have you done so?
I have.
Okay. Do you have any objection to any of the documents that are contained within the binder?
No.
Okay. And do you have any objection to sealing exhibits 4 and 5 under the protective order that's been provided me?
No.
Okay, so that motion, that request will be granted. Is it all right if I simply receive 1 through 7 and the protective order will remain for identification, Mr. Lee?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So those exhibits are received and the protective order form will be Exhibit 8 for identification. Okay, please continue.
I do have a summary of the case that I can present to the board members at this time. Petitioner was issued licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 40105 on or about October 29, 2003, and the license was in full force and effect at all times relevant to the charges that were brought against her. Petitioner was convicted of felony criminal threats with an enhancement for using a firearm during the commission of a felony on April 1, 2010. She was arrested for pointing a .45 caliber handgun at an individual's head and threatening to kill that individual. An accusation was filed on May 13, 2010. However, petitioner failed to file a notice of defense, and the board adopted the default decision in order, which revoked petitioner's original license effective October 20th, 2010. Petitioner later petitioned for reinstatement, which was granted on January 25, 2017, and she was issued licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 100851 on July 20th, 2017. This was after she successfully completed conditions precedent. The license was immediately revoked, stayed, and placed on probation for 5 years with both optional and standard terms and conditions. Petitioner's probation was tolled from July 20th, 2017, the effective date, through June 4, 2018, and her updated expected completion date is June 3rd, 2023. Petitioner is requesting modification of her probation. Her probation is currently as follows. Psychological evaluation, the condition precedent, was completed on July 6, 2017. Psychotherapy quarterly reports, full compliance. Supervised practice, full compliance. Remedial education was completed on May 29, 2018. Biological fluid testing, compliance. And she is otherwise in compliance with the standard terms and conditions of her probation. Petitioner seeks a reduction in therapy from 4 times a month to 2 times a month, a reduction in supervision from 4 times to 1 time a month, and a termination in the requirement for biological fluid testing. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Crowley, would you like to address the board this morning?
I would. I have a written statement because I'm extremely nervous and.
Okay, before you begin, would you please stand and raise your right hand to be
Yes.
sworn? You solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you should give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please be seated. And would you state your name for the record?
Melissa Crowley.
Okay, before you, it's all right to read the statement, but here's something I've learned over many years of doing this job. For whatever reason, whenever anybody reads a document, they speed up. I don't know why, but they always do. Okay, so what I tell people is, well, I got a 3-year-old granddaughter. I'm trying to think of at what stage of life of a child do you read at a particular slow level? I want you to think, if you have children or grandchildren of your own, think about that. Yeah, think about that slow pace, and that's the pace. It won't be slow, I promise you, but think that's the pace that you're reading your document. Okay?
Okay.
Please begin.
Thank you. Well, I want to skip the first 2 paragraphs because he's already addressed that. So I am asking for a reduction in my probation requirements because I'm talking too fast, because I have been doing well over the past 7 years and have remained sober for over 7 years. I have been in private practice since June 1st of 2018 with a small clientele of about 7 clients while attending school and raising 2 teenage boys. I am managing my stress and have a good support system. However, a major stressor has been the time and cost of my current probation requirements. Random drug testing costs me between $206 and $236 per month, and weekly supervision costs me $240 a month for a cost of about $500 per month. And I am under financial hardship. My sense of myself is that I am a seasoned therapist and doing well enough managing my stress successfully and do not require as much supervision. My lifestyle and support system keep me from relapsing, and my therapist and supervisor are just a phone call away if necessary. My lifestyle since my divorce in 2012 has completely changed, and my family and friends are very supportive. My practice is going well as I am staying under 10 clients, and my parenting and schooling, because I'm currently in school, are going well. I continue to see my psychiatrist every month, and my medication has only been slightly adjusted over the years. My diagnosis has been in remission for years as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lee, questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Do you have any current criminal convictions that you have not previously disclosed to the board?
No,
Have you been the subject of any out-of-state disciplinary proceedings against any professional license that you hold since the accusation was originally filed in May 13, 2010?
no,
Are there any current criminal or civil charges pending against you in this state or in any other jurisdiction?
no, no,
Are you currently seeking treatment with anyone other than Pamela St. John and Gregory Long?
no.
What steps are you taking to address the underlying issues that resulted in your discipline?
I am seeking therapy, obviously, and a big part of my offense was that I was in a pretty severe manic episode at the time. So I have to monitor that on a daily basis, my bipolar, and I'm managing my stress well through various things that I do.
What are the type of things that you do to manage your stress?
Okay, it's keeping my caseload down, under 10 clients, working a small part-time job. I'm raising 2 teenage boys, which is very exhausting. And I'm doing things like hiking and gardening and baking and running, and I have a really good support system now.
What is that support system?
I have friends and a boyfriend, and none of them drink, and drinking is not part of my lifestyle, which has been a significant stress reducer. Journaling has been helpful as well, but mainly it's my family and my friends that are supportive to me.
In what way do you rely upon your family and friends in order to manage your stress levels?
Well, if I'm having a bad day and I need somebody to vent to or talk to, they're always a phone call or a text away.
Is there any type of triggering event or circumstance that lets you know I need to reach out to somebody for a phone call or to meet them or whatnot?
Yes. Anytime I'm encountering stress, whether it's with my children or my job, or it's little things like if traffic is bad, or I'm constantly having to monitor that, and I'm aware of my triggers. Do you want me to go into my triggers as far as bipolar goes, or just my stress?
At this point, just stress levels.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it can be anything on a daily basis, anything that causes stress, like fighting with my children or my mom's illness or anything like that.
What have you identified as triggers?
Those are triggers for me. I'm not sure what you mean.
Very stressors.
Yeah,
in your life.
stressors,
Okay.
like fighting with my children or them getting into trouble or having an over amount of things to do would be a trigger for me. Am I answering your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Your past conviction involved an incident with alcohol, correct?
I wasn't drinking during that day, but I was abusing alcohol, binge drinking around that time.
Okay. Did you subsequently enroll in any type of support program?
Yes, I was involved in AA for 3 years.
Okay. Do you currently attend AA now?
No, I don't, but I still am in communication with the girls that I met in AA.
Okay. Is there a reason why you decided that you would not use AA anymore?
Yeah, I felt like my lifestyle had changed in a way that didn't include alcohol, and I had definitely gotten a lot out of AA, but didn't feel the need to keep going. I know the question will come up, and if I ever at any time feel like I'm going to drink or go back to alcohol, I certainly would have no problem going back to AA.
Was your attendance at AA the result of a court order, or was it voluntary?
It was voluntary.
When you were at AA, did you have a sponsor?
I did.
Okay. Do you continue to keep in touch with that person at this time?
I do.
What is your sobriety date?
It is October 15th of 2011.
How are you currently employed?
I'm employed through private practice. I have, well, as of yesterday, I have 8 clients now. And I also help out with sorry, I'm blanking on this. Helping out at the fairgrounds for events that go on there. And I do databasing for them. It's not very much work, but it's about 10 hours a week.
How long have you been in your private practice?
Since the beginning of June of 2018.
I know you touched upon this a little bit earlier as far as reaching out to family and friends. What are other steps that you take on a daily or regular basis to keep from getting into the same place that resulted in your original discipline?
I have learned that I have to monitor my mood every day, all day long, and check for things like irritability. I have to make sure that I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. I have to look for cues for becoming manic or depressed. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
I don't know that I can remember exactly what I said.
I'm sorry, I lost my
But
train
it was
of
generally what steps you take on a daily or regular basis to keep yourself from getting to the place that
Okay.
resulted in your original discipline.
Okay, I just want to let the board know that when the incident happened, I had been full-time employed at a juvenile detention facility. And it was extremely stressful, and I had a 45-minute commute both ways, and was working 10-hour days with 2 small children in a bad marriage, and my stress level was just overwhelming. And I have my life structured now that I will make sure that that will never happen again. So I guess, comparatively speaking, I just make sure that I'm checking my stress level and making sure that I never go back to where it was. Hopefully that answers the question.
What type of relationship do you have, if any at all, now with your ex-husband?
Well, we're divorced, obviously, but we co-parent together and we communicate almost every day, either by text or phone, regarding the children.
Would you say it's a congenial relationship?
Yeah, it is now.
And what is your opinion so far as your relationship with your ex-husband when it comes to your children? Has it been challenging to work with him and with issues relating to the children, or how has that been?
It's been challenging. We had a court battle for a good year, which was very stressful, but now we're at a point where he's stepping up and being more of a parent, and it's been easier for the past several years.
So when you signed well, strike that. You understand that your probationary period is set for 5 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you understand that probation is an opportunity for the board to observe and monitor your practice?
Yes.
And that the foremost responsibility for the board is obviously public protection?
Absolutely.
Okay. So your probation was told from July 20th, 2017 through June 4th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So at the current time, you've been on probation for less than 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so why are you coming before the board now, less than 1 year into your probation, asking for reductions in both therapy as well as supervision?
Because I feel that I'm ready for a reduction in supervision and therapy and in drug testing. I've never missed a drug test. I've never tested positive. I never will. And my therapist and supervisor both agreed. It was them bringing up the fact that I didn't need to be there as much as I was.
Do you have an opinion as to, I guess, your therapist's opinion that you don't need to be there as often?
Yeah, I've seen her for over 10 years, so we've addressed a lot of significant issues.
In your testimony, you indicated that the incident that resulted in your criminal conviction had a lot to do with stress.
Absolutely.
So you continue to have a relationship with your ex-husband, which is challenging, in your words, in dealing with young children. Do you have any contingency plans in place for when your life starts to get to that point?
Yes. It actually happened on Sunday. I was having a problem with my older son, and I texted my therapist in the morning. She called me that day and talked to me. She's only a phone call away. And I called my dad and my brother, and I always have supportive people that I can talk to, and I won't let that support system crumble. So that would be the way I would deal with it, is reaching out to people, which is new for me. I mean, since the incident happened, I was pretty much a lone ranger at that time, not having any support system around me. So I think my support system is key.
So that kind of leads me into my next question, which was, what is different now than when the incident happened?
As far as my support system goes?
As far as your life in
general?
In general.
Well, a huge factor is that I'm divorced now from a husband who's an alcoholic. And I lost all my drinking friends during that time, so now my friends and my lifestyle are completely different. And I'm better able at managing my children. The job that I had, I don't know if many people could do that for 12 years. It took a toll on me, and now I'm making sure that I don't have employment like that anymore.
And when you talk about that job, you're talking about when you worked with
When I worked with
detention.
juvenile detention facility, yeah.
When you meet with your supervisor, what are the type of things that you go over?
We consult about my caseload and my cases, and if I have questions or need ideas, she'll address that with me. I address countertransference if it comes up. That kind of stuff.
At the time of the incident that resulted in your conviction, I think part of your earlier testimony was you didn't have support in place,
Correct.
whereas now you do.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you can recognize in the past for why you didn't have a support system in place? And why you didn't reach out to people at that time?
I had a supervisor, but I worked for the county, and she was in a different location, and I was at the juvenile detention facility on my own, so I didn't always have access to her, and when I did, she was busy. And now I have not only my supervisor, but I'm in an office with 5 other therapists, and we meet every Monday to do consultation together. And the support system is just completely different. I didn't have other therapists at that time to bounce ideas off of. I was the only one in the juvenile detention facility as the program manager. So I was off on my own, as opposed to now. And I have to say my caseload went from about 70 juveniles to now I have, 8 clients. It's a big difference.
That's all the questions I have at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, board members, let's start on the other end this time.
I don't have any questions.
Hi, thanks for coming, to speak with us. So, so you were, your probation was told, for about a year, a little bit.
Under a year, but yeah.
Yeah, a little under a year. So, were you, did you continue to do counseling?
I can explain that.
Yes, please.
Okay. I knew that would be one of the questions. I live in a town, I live in Chico, and it wasn't easy to find a supervisor. It wasn't easy to find a supervisor that would supervise me, given my charges. I had some of them just flat out say, no way. I tried getting a job at agencies, and because I'm on probation, they wouldn't hire me because of the supervision part of it. So then I looked into starting a private practice, which I had no clue how to do. I'm still learning. And that took a while to even get one client. And then I started my class that I was required to do, the chemical dependency class. And that was almost 2 hours away, twice a week. And I just felt like the stress level was a bit much at the time for me. And so I decided to wait until the class ended in May to begin supervision and private practice.
So were you receiving counseling during that time when you were?
Yeah, I've been in counseling for over 10 years with the same therapist, and I have gone like twice a week at times.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but not the private practice, not the supervised practice part.
This,
So what I'm saying. Let me just reframe it.
Okay.
So I guess that did you start the supervised practice when you start up your private practice?
No, I started. I'm not sure if I understand. I started supervision before I started private practice. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I started a couple months before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And so the other, just a little follow-up question. So, when you were talking about, your job in juvenile hall and you started to tear up, and I just want to kind of dive in a little bit more and what led up to the tears?
That I didn't recognize that I was under any stress because I was manic. I was sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, and I just thought I was superwoman doing it all. I didn't need any support. I didn't want any support, and it drove me to do what I did, and so the whole thing is upsetting.
So you were upset,
Mm-hmm.
upset at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you talk about this with your therapist?
I still do.
So what kind of, so how do you manage that upsetting emotions?
I talk it out with her. She can reframe it or process it with me. It's just a lot of accepting myself for what I did and forgiving myself, and that's pretty much what we work on. But I also do a ton of journaling when this comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or I can talk to a friend about it.
So do you have an image, when you think that, the emotions wouldn't bother you so much? And so, it affects your work because it's two-way street, right? The healthier you are, the better
Yeah.
work that you do. Yeah?
Yeah.
So do you have an image about, how much further you have to go before you can completely, manage that upsetting emotions?
I think that it's going to be a lifelong process. I think this whole thing's been a process, but I generally don't cry about it. I just think I'm very emotional right now being here. But I think that given where I was and given where I am now, it's like night and day. It's completely different. I've done a lot of forgiveness and understanding and accepting my bipolar. It's been a huge factor. So I just think it's going to be a lifelong process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you identify as an alcoholic?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And will you explain to me how you see the intersectionality of your alcoholism and bipolar disorder?
Yeah, well, for me, I can only speak for myself. For me, I was binge drinking with suburban moms. So it felt like a norm to me. I didn't feel like there was anything wrong with it. And I also self-medicated for stress and anger and anxiety. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You are,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, so that's for me personally.
Yeah.
And then I learned, I hate to say it, but that class, I don't know who suggested the class for me, but the class taught me a lot about binge drinking being an alcoholic, and I never even put the two together. And then since the class, now I'm taking my CCAP to become a chemical dependency counselor. Well, I'm going to specialize in that with teens, so it was a positive experience.
Okay. And just, I wanted to clarify something you had said earlier about your consultation group on Mondays. So you talk about cases, it's sort of like a supervision, or not supervision, but...
Yeah, we
yeah.
talk about our cases, and I do have that in my informed consent for my clients that they know that I do consultation.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just want to congratulate you on how far you've come
Thank you.
and taking care of yourself. I did have one more question. In terms of when he had asked about triggers, and you asked about for stressors versus your bipolar disorder, your brain getting out of balance, what are triggers for the out of balance?
For the bipolar?
Yeah, or maybe not triggers. What are things that you know that maybe you need to go get help?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing is not sleeping. And my doctor has a sleeping medication for me that I can take, which I don't usually have to take, but I know that if I don't sleep, that's going to set me off. And you're asking about what are my indications, right? Okay.
Indications, yeah.
I stop eating, I exercise more. My house gets messy because I start project after project, and I notice that my house is becoming like disarray. I have racing thoughts and an inability to focus, and speeding and shopping. I have quite a list.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that's okay. That's enough.
Okay.
Are there other people who would be able to see those as
They
well?
do.
In case you,
Mhm.
yeah. Have you had little uh-ohs coming
Yep.
on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my friends will say, your thoughts are really racing, or, how fast were you driving? You said you were driving fast. How fast were you driving? So they know, and I've educated them, my family and my friends, about it, so they know.
And then when that's happened, what did you do?
Well, sometimes I take the defense, but most of the time I have insight and have to step back and look at it and figure out what I need to do.
Can you give me a specific example of something you have done?
Yeah, I've called my doctor and said I'm noticing that my mood is swinging up, and then he'll adjust my medication a little bit, or just try and focus on relaxing and how can I reduce my stress level.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
So my questions were very much like Leah's, because it sounds like it was a while before you really acknowledged the bipolar or accepted that. And there was a period of time where people were giving you feedback, but that was hard to hear.
Yeah.
When did you truly acknowledge the bipolar and that was something that was going to need to be addressed?
When the criminal incident happened, because I can think back to being an adolescent, having a manic episode. But again, I thought that was normal. I just thought I was a very productive person, a very type A person who got a lot of stuff done. But it wasn't until the criminal conviction that I knew something was definitely wrong.
And given that our role is really to protect the public.
I know that.
To make sure that there are those fail-safe,
Mhm.
mechanisms in place. And I appreciate what you said. You have a lot of people who are watching, who are giving you feedback.
Mhm.
If you, you may feel like you've already answered this, but if you are kind of skipping down that road again,
Mhm.
Unfortunately, one of the things that happens is that it's harder to accept that feedback, right? I mean, as you
Absolutely.
said, you kind of
I'm
get
being honest,
defensive and
yeah.
you know. Oh, me? Uh-oh,
Oh, sorry.
sorry. Yeah, so that's part of the illness, is that it's hard to accept that feedback. So you have friends who are going to warn you. Is there a fail-safe? Is there a, if you see me doing this and I'm not
Mhm.
taking action, is there someone who will
Yeah.
really intervene in a strong way that will kind of be that fail-safe, that net?
Yes, I have a particular friend that would step in. She's called my therapist way back when. And I know that my therapist picks up on it, and I pick up on it, and there's a phone call to my therapist. And if I ever was skipping down that road, I would look at a voluntary hospitalization if I needed to, or I would look at going to see my doctor and changing my medication, or having somebody stay with me. There's lots of things that I would do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Actually, no question from me. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for coming in, but I have no questions.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in. Is there any time in your life that you have to worry about the other side of bipolar, not just the high, but the low?
Yes.
Because you didn't talk much about that. Can you fill us in on that?
Yes. I tend to get more depressed in the winter when I can't get out more. I know that that part's there too, and there's steps that I take for that too. Like I'm making sure that I'm not isolating myself. Or it tends to swing the opposite where I'm sleeping too much and I'm eating too much. So when I said that I have to monitor my mood on a daily basis all day long, that's pretty much what I have to do.
So I guess I'm thinking about, has it been a big problem for you, during the depressive phase? That's something we should worry about.
I haven't been depressed in quite some time, so it's always a concern for me. I mean, I'm always on alert that this
Okay.
can go either way, so I don't want to minimize it. But my mood's been stable for a very long time.
Thank you.
Sure.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you for your vigilance.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I want to thank you for coming in today. I actually just had one question. I may have missed it. What did you, or have you stated, or could you just tell us what your sobriety date is? When was the last time?
It's October 15th of 2011.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
At this time, I have no questions.
Okay, any further questions by board members? Nope. Any further questions by you, Mr. Lee?
Just one, maybe a couple follow-ups. You indicate that you've been in therapy for approximately 10 years or so. So prior to probation, how often were you going to therapy before?
About once a week, but then when the incident happened, it boosted up to 2 to 3 times a week.
And part of your petition today is a request to reduce therapy to 2 times a month.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Ms. Crowley, you have the opportunity to summarize your position. You don't have to, but is there something you want to close with?
I think everything was said, but I just want to thank the board for taking the time to listen to me and just giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you for appearing. I think you heard me tell the earlier petitioner the board will meet in executive session, decide the matter, and send you a written decision in due course.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, with that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed. Off the record, Ms. Crowley, the court reporter is going to give you a document by which you can, or with which you can request a transcript if you're so inclined.
Sounds like we're going to take a quick 5-minute.
Filed by Danielle Marie Everly. This is agency case number 2002-017-001384, Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2019-01-0843. My name is Carl Engelman, Administrative Law Judge assigned to hear this matter. Mr. Lee, would you identify yourself for the record?
Stanton Lee from the Office of the Attorney General.
Okay, thank you. For the record, board members are present. I won't ask them to identify themselves as they did in the first matter this morning, but they remain present. Ms. Everly is here. Ms. Everly, did you understand that had you wished and at your own expense, you could have been represented by a lawyer in these proceedings?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to represent yourself, however.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And you have watched the prior proceedings, so you know the process by which the board handles these matters?
Correct.
Okay. All right then, Mr. Lee.
Good morning again, everybody. I am here pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. My role is not in an adversarial capacity. However, I'm here to assist the board with protecting the public interest and ensuring that the panel has sufficient information from which to make a decision. Prior to beginning, I did serve on the petitioner and provided a copy to the judge of a request for protective order as well as a proposed protective order sealing confidential records, which would include exhibits number 3 and 4 of this package. Exhibit 3 is a forensic psychological evaluation, and Exhibit 4 is psychotherapy quarterly reports. And I have asked the judge to issue an order maintaining the confidentiality of those mental health records.
Okay, and let me ask Ms. Everly, with respect to Exhibits 3 and 4, those have been previously marked. You've had a chance, I hope, to look at them. Any objection to my sealing those exhibits if they become part of the evidence?
No objection.
Okay.
I do want to bring something up from the report eventually, but no
Okay.
objection to selling them.
And you've looked at the other exhibits within that black binder presented to you?
Correct.
Any objection to my receiving any of those exhibits in evidence, other than the protective order, any objection to the remaining exhibits?
No, Your Honor.
Okay? You wish to offer them, Mr. Lee?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are received. 7 will remain for identification. That's the actual protective order, which I will grant. Okay, please continue.
I will note that prior to us beginning, the petitioner did provide 2 additional letters of support. One is dated February 21, 2019, signed by Ms. Speak, S-P-E-A-K, and the other letter is not dated but is signed by Ms. Bonfilio, B-O-N-F-I-G-L-I-O, the program director at Phoenix House.
Okay, in the prior matter, I waited till the presentation of testimony by the petitioner, but I don't see any need to do that. You wish to offer these 2 letters to supplement your petition?
Correct.
Okay, any objection, Mr. Lee?
No, Your Honor.
All right, those will be received as Exhibit 8.
With that, Your Honor, I do have a summary to provide for the board.
All right, please.
Petitioner was issued an Associate Marriage and Family Therapist intern registration on or about October 12, 2017, and the registration has been in full force and effect at all times. On December 9, 2013, petitioner was convicted of disturbing the peace. On May 13, 2010, petitioner was convicted, On July 27, 2009, Ms. Everly was convicted for violating a restraining order. On July 11, 2005, petitioner was convicted of driving under the influence. A statement of issues was filed on July 28, 2017, and the board adopted a stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which immediately revoked and stayed and placed petitioner on probation for 5 years with optional and standard terms and conditions effective October 13, 2017. The current status of petitioner's probation is as follows. Psychological evaluation completed December 12, 2017. Psychotherapy quarterly reports, full compliance. Relapse prevention program completed May 8, 2018. Dependency support program, full compliance. Remedial education completed July 11, 2018. Biological fluid testing, full compliance. She is otherwise in full compliance with the other standard terms and conditions, including quarterly reports and reimbursement costs. Petitioner seeks a termination of term number 2 of her probation, which requires psychotherapy, and modification of terms 3, 6, and 7, which would result in a reduction in dependency support program attendance and a reduction in the number of drug and alcohol screenings per month. I will note for the board that under the terms of probation, the drug and alcohol screenings per month are subject to the uniform standards related to substance abuse and the guidelines are provided within that document. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Everly, you wish to address the board?
I have a statement. I don't know if you want me to do that first.
Well, anything that you wish the board to consider must be under oath, okay? So why don't you stand and raise your right hand to be sworn? You solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you shall give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. And would you please state your name for the record?
Danielle Marie Everly.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, I just wanted to read a statement first to keep it organized.
Okay, and I think you heard the admonition I delivered to the prior petitioner about reading slowly.
Yes, and I am a fast talker, so I'm going to try my best.
Okay. If you speed up, the court reporter is going to halt you, all right? So go ahead.
Sounds fair. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone here for giving me this opportunity to petition my terms of... Okay. I told you.
Yeah, as I said to people, you slow down to the point where you think it's ridiculous, but it'll be normal.
Okay. Start that over. First of all, I would like to thank everyone here for giving me this opportunity to petition my terms of probation and present my case. This really means a lot to me as I've traveled from Southern California to be here today to provide you with whatever you may need. I'm not exactly sure where to begin, so I think I will start with the most important aspect, at least for me that is, which is my sobriety. Not having my sobriety is what led to me being in this position in the first place, which is being placed on probation with the BBS. So I wanted to share with all of you how sobriety has changed my life. This past January 8th, 2019, I celebrated with my son and other family members the 5-year anniversary of when I got sober and began to change my life. For many years, alcohol was not a major issue in my life. However, because of a poor choice on my part, I did receive a DUI in 2005, which in hindsight was a blessing in disguise. Although I was not yet drinking alcoholically, this DUI forced me to attend AA meetings, which opened my eyes to the AA community and the 12-step program, which I would eventually need in my recovery. Okay. Over time, my drinking began to become a major problem in my life, starting around 2008 and 2009 when my marriage began to fall apart and my ex-husband began having a relationship with someone else. I started using alcohol to cope with the pain of getting divorced and the anxiety over being a single mother and everything else that comes along with divorce. I was devastated over having to share 50% custody of my then 3-year-old son, Austin. Over the next few years, I made attempts to cut back and slow down my drinking, and I was successful for certain periods of time. However, the progression of alcoholism continued, and I eventually realized I was powerless over alcohol. On January 8th, 2014, I woke up hungover for the last time. I began to chase my recovery the same way I chased my drinking. I immediately began attending AA meetings, and I found a sponsor at 8 Days Sober. My sponsor, Carrie Anthony, that has also submitted a letter to the BBS, has been my sponsor since that day. I have worked the 12 steps of AA with her twice now and currently am on steps 10, 11, and 12, the maintenance steps. I continue to take a personal daily inventory. I have a great relationship with my higher power, and one of the most important aspects is how I practice the principles of AA in all of my affairs. I am not a perfect person, and I would never claim to be, but I now have the ability to work on myself, the willingness to look at myself objectively, and the humility to make amends, simply because of the program of AA. I have attended 5 sober women's retreats with Carrie and other women from AA that I have met since I got sober. 2 of these retreats took place in Big Bear and 3 in Palos Verdes. I gained so much from attending these retreats and plan to attend the Palos Verdes one annually. While I was attending my last sober retreat in Palos Verdes this past October, I was selected for a random drug test on that Sunday and left early to make sure I had time to test. I have attended the powwow in Palm Desert, which is also a sober convention held in the summer. I have worked very hard over the past 5 years, to rebuild my life and would never risk going backwards after all that I have accomplished and continue to work towards. I have attended AA meetings regularly since getting sober. I originally was attending about 4 meetings per week and had tapered down over the years as my recovery grew and I became more and more confident in my sobriety. I have a home group that I attend, as well as many meetings that I consider regular meetings of mine. I have close relationships with many people in AA. I have also shared my story at speaker meetings and on social media. My loved ones have been encouraging me to write a book on my recovery for years, and I have recently been speaking with a ghostwriter on this opportunity, as I believe that sharing my story will help others, just as other people's stories have helped me. Everyone in my life knows that I am sober, and my recovery is the most important aspect of my life, as without my recovery, I would not have all the amazing things that I have and hold so dearly. One of the requests for my petition today pertains to the removal of therapy. I'm so grateful for the time that I have spent in therapy, and one of the most important things we have worked on is not allowing my past to define me. I can now look back at my past without shame and rather with pride. I no longer see my past mistakes as liabilities, but rather as assets. If it wasn't for those difficult times, I wouldn't be the strong, empathetic, and humble person I am today. I refuse to let my past define me, just as any of us in this field would encourage our clients to do. I attended therapy while I was in graduate school for approximately 17 months, and I've submitted a letter from this therapist. I also attended, is this on? Sounds like it didn't, okay. I have also attended co-parenting therapy with my ex-husband for approximately 2 years, off and on. I have no problem seeking therapy when I feel it is needed. Since getting sober, I have had no involvement with the law. All my legal issues were a direct result of my drinking and the associated behaviors. The legal issues I encountered took place prior to getting sober, long before I pursued my master's degree and registration with the Board of Behavioral Science. It was actually during my early recovery when I realized my strong passion for helping others and my desire to return to graduate school. When I first attempted to return to graduate school at Azusa Pacific University, I was told that the cohort was full and that I should try again the following year. Well, being the persistent person that I am, I was not satisfied with this response. I made a decision that day to drive to the Azusa Pacific University campus, where I was able to schedule a meeting with the program director to explain my reasons for returning in order to be considered on a conditional basis. I was notified later that week that they had indeed changed their mind, and I was admitted to APU to begin that fall. I completed my master's degree in less than 2 years with a 3.85 GPA, while being a single mother, working part-time, completing 2 separate internships, and attending most of my son's baseball games on the weekends. I am no stranger to hard work and being dedicated to the things I care about. I would never jeopardize my career, which I have worked so very hard for. Another benefit of my recovery was the improved relationship with my ex-husband, Anthony, whom I share our child, Austin, with. We began attending therapy together around 2015 to work on co-parenting issues and some struggles that our son was having at the time. We remained in therapy for approximately 2 years, off and on as needed, to work on matters related to our son and to improve our communication. This has been a wonderful investment and has changed all of our lives for the better. Anthony and I now have a great relationship and attend our son's events and activities together as a blended family where we can all engage with each other as friends. Anthony and his wife Sarah just had their second child, Aiden. My son and I brought them dinner the other night, and I got to hold and meet baby Aiden. We all had dinner together, enjoyed each other's company, and exhibited nothing but authentic kindness and respect. I am a different person today because of my recovery. I am not the person described in the police reports that were submitted to the board. I only hope that you can see the changes I have made and how dedicated I am to the life that I now have. I currently work at Phoenix House, which is a nonprofit substance abuse treatment center. I was recently promoted to the position of outpatient program coordinator. I love what I do for work, and I choose to work in this field because I enjoy working with others that are struggling and need support. I have so much to be grateful for. Recovery is the biggest part of my life, whether it's at work coming up with new and creative ideas for our outpatient program, meeting with clients, or meeting with my sober friends for dinner or coffee. I also currently attend 3 AA meetings per the board's VBS requirements. The majority of my close friends are sober, and we take vacations together with our children. I also meet with and talk to my sponsor regularly. I understand the importance of being placed on probation in order to protect the public. I feel that I have proven my continued dedication to my recovery and that I am not a threat to anyone, as I have been in 100% compliance with the terms of my probation. I have done everything that was asked of me, including leaving my son with friends at our timeshare in Palm Desert so that I could submit to a random drug test on vacation. I have attended AA meetings while on a cruise ship with my son in the Bahamas at the request of my probation monitor. I have remained sober and will continue to remain sober, whether my probation terms are adjusted or not. I have dealt with many personal challenges over the past 5 years in my sobriety, including setbacks with my degree posting, losing friends to addiction, family issues, and the end of a serious relationship. I now possess the coping skills and the knowledge to handle these challenges that may come my way without alcohol. My drug tests, I believe, were lowered at the 1-year anniversary, and I'm requesting to be tested once per month, as I feel that I have established long-term recovery already, and this would be more congruent with my current status in recovery. I also have requested that my AA meetings be lowered to once per week instead of 3 times, as I was attending meetings approximately once per week prior to being placed on probation while maintaining nearly 4 years of sobriety at that time. I am sure most people discuss the cost and inconvenience of probation, and we are all aware of this, so I don't want to say much about that, except for that it does pose a challenge at times, being a single mother with a son in travel baseball. I have had to become very creative with my schedule, and being granted some relief in this area would not only allow me more time with my son, but also time to study for the state exam, which I plan to take in the upcoming months, as well as the time to focus on and develop my career in my new position at work. I'm sure you will all ask questions related to my request for my probation modification. I just wanted to let you know some of these details about my recovery. I was committed to my long-term recovery before any interaction with the BBS, and I will always remain committed to my recovery. I felt like that was longer than expected, and I truly appreciate being provided with this platform to share with all of you my progress and journey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee, questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. I believe my summary initially may have left out an additional conviction, so I want to clarify on the record here. In 2005, you were convicted of a DUI, correct?
Yes,
In 2009, you were convicted of violating a restraining order.
correct,
In 2010, you were convicted of disturbing the peace.
correct,
And in 2013, you were convicted a second time of disturbing the peace.
correct.
Okay. Do you have any criminal convictions that haven't been previously disclosed to the board?
No, I do not.
Have you been the subject of any out-of-state disciplinary proceedings against any professional license that you hold since the statement of issues was filed in July of 2017?
No,
Are there any current criminal or civil charges pending against you in this state or in any other jurisdiction?
no,
Are you currently seeking treatment with anyone other than C.C. Adams?
no.
And you talked a little bit about it in your opening statement, but what are the day-to-day things that you do to keep yourself from regressing into the situation that resulted in the multiple criminal convictions?
Right. Well, the biggest factor for those convictions was alcohol, and I'm over 5 years sober now. I attend meetings weekly. I have a sponsor I've been in contact with and close with for over 5 years, the same sponsor. My 3 closest friends are also sober. We talk, we get coffee almost every week, every Wednesday, with one of my friends. And then I do a lot of self-care. I do Orange Theory. I have an incredibly supportive, amazing family. We're a large family, but we're very close, and we get together and do a lot of things together. So they're always there for me, to talk to if anything comes up. And, I'm currently in therapy, so that's a place where, if anything were to come up, or if I terminated therapy and something came up, I would have no problem returning to therapy. And I think I just have a better understanding now of, the coping skills of not worrying about the future too much and sort of those anxiety-producing feelings. I understand that a lot of the things I go through are temporary and will pass, and I think understanding that and moving forward is really important.
So in your response, you noted multiple things that you can rely on for assistance in dealing with day-to-day matters. How do those things specifically help?
They're just things I enjoy doing, things that bring me joy. I mean, I enjoy going to meetings. I enjoy meeting up with my sober friends and catching up. I love my family. We go to church together as well, and I enjoy that. So there's just, it brings me joy. It brings me peace. Some comfort knowing there's other people to talk to and can relate to and understand me the way maybe some other people might not.
Do you have any type of contingency plan in place to address a circumstance where you may be slipping into past conduct that resulted in your criminal convictions and your subsequent discipline?
I mean, the first thing I would do is probably reach out to my sponsor or call some of my other friends in AA. I have kind of what I stated in there. There were some things that happened that were stressful and unexpected throughout my 5 years of sobriety, and I've never had to resort to alcohol. I've always been able to reach out, call a friend, talk to someone, instead of, going back to old behaviors.
Earlier in your opening, I believe, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, that you indicated that you weren't engaged in alcoholic behavior in 2005 when you had your DUI, but that behavior didn't start until about 2008 and 2009. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you learned anything in your Alcoholics Anonymous classes and support groups as far as whether or not that 2005 DUI may have been a sign or a symptom of underlying alcoholism that ultimately manifested in 2008 and 2009 with an increase in your drinking?
I do believe that was probably the beginning stage of that. I maybe wasn't aware of that at the time, but I also got married shortly after that and had a baby and was finishing my undergrad, so I became super focused on all of that. So I think that kind of maybe postponed it a few years, if that makes sense. Because I was very focused on my child, and I didn't care about drinking when I was pregnant or after I had him, and was very focused on school. So definitely could have been an indicator at that point.
How are you currently employed?
I'm employed full-time at Phoenix House.
And what is Phoenix House?
It is a nonprofit substance abuse dual diagnosis treatment center.
And what is your particular role there?
I was recently promoted to outpatient coordinator, so I work in our outpatient program, which is co-ed, and help sort of coordinate the groups, the schedule, making sure one of the biggest things is documentation, because we are Medi-Cal contracted, and so we have to make sure we are meeting all the standards for quality assurance and things of that nature as far as documentation goes.
How would you characterize the day-to-day stress levels of being in that particular position?
I would say it's about the stress level of any job I've had. I don't see it as overly stressful or exhausting. I think it has a normal amount of stress that comes, and most of it is due to documentation. which we all know is very important in this field. So, I was just promoted to this position about a month ago. So I'm still sort of coming up with the new protocols we're going to be implementing to sort of keep ourselves more in compliance with documentation. So that's still underway.
Can you describe what's available to you at work as far as addressing difficult challenges that you may have at work that could produce higher levels of stress than any other working day?
Yes, I have several supervisors that work at Phoenix House in different areas. There's my clinical supervisor, Amber Hamilton, who I believe also submitted a letter, who is basically my supervisor for my hours. And then there is Kristen Bonfiglio, the letter that, the previous one? The first one? Kristen, yes. Bonfiglio. And she is the actual program director of Phoenix House Residential Program. So I'm outpatient, I'm kind of in the back. And she's a resource I can utilize all the time for questions or direction on something that I may need help with, as well as our other deputy director, Jan Pollitt, who I believe also submitted a letter. So she's someone I can utilize as well. So there's actually there's 3 licensed clinicians that are very well developed in this field that I can go to for any type of support I may need.
Earlier in your opening, you spoke pretty highly about the therapy that you've had. Why do you want to have therapy terminated in its entirety?
Well, I feel that, and my therapist agrees with me, and I believe she stated that in the letter, it's not really clinically relevant anymore. There's no outstanding circumstance in my life that I need therapy. I mean, my life is honestly really good. I'm very happy. Everything's going well. I'm just, pushing through this probation period, but, there's no excess. I mean, that's probably the main source of stress, honestly. There's no other circumstances in my life that are stressful, or I'm not depressed. And, therapy's kind of become, I'm still going because I'm required, but, we both realize it's not really clinically relevant. And then she had brought up even, the Camp Code of Ethics. I think it's like 17.1 or whatever, but, she's not really supposed to be providing therapy that's not clinically relevant or for the sole purpose of financial gain. So we talked about that. And, I had 17 months of therapy shortly after I got sober, when I was in graduate school, working on self-development and things of that nature. And then I went for 2 years, kind of during that same time, but more focused on co-parenting therapy with my ex-husband, with a different therapist. And then I was just not in therapy for a while. I didn't really need therapy. And then I started therapy again per the BBS requirements. And yeah, I mean, I don't feel it's relevant in my life right now for anything that I have going on. I would have no issue seeking out therapy if I felt I needed it. I have nothing against therapy. It's just, I don't think it's currently relevant necessity for me.
I believe earlier you indicated that you still continue to go to AA meetings, correct? And you're working on the final few steps of the AA program, correct?
Well, it's just the maintenance, self-inventory and all that stuff.
What was the number of times that you went to AA prior to being on probation?
When I first started going to AA, as I stated in the letter, I was going probably about 4 times per week when I was newly sober. And that's when I was, very newly sober, first time working with my sponsor, all of that. And then over time, probably after about a year or so, I started going a little less. And then 2 years, a little bit less. It just varies. There's times where I, prior to BBS's involvement, I was probably going on average once a week. Sometimes it may have been 2 or 3 if someone asked me to go with them, or if I felt I'll just go to meeting night. I don't have my son. He's at his dad's. I'll go to meetings, things like that. So on average, I would say it was once a month prior to being placed on probation. Once a week.
And it's your request now that the board reduce your program attendance back down to once a week.
Yes, that's my request. And I also do attend, like I stated, the annual AA retreats. My 3 closest friends are all sober, so we're often getting together with coffee, dinner with our kids. We go on vacations together with our kids. So I'm involved in other things outside of that, hour and a half meeting per week that is focused on recovery.
That's all the questions I have at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go back to this side for board member questions.
Good morning.
Morning.
I can't really see you.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me what you would consider your sobriety date?
January 8th, 2014.
And your request is to remove therapy altogether?
Yes.
And from what I've heard, you credit therapy for the relationship you have with your husband and your child and your husband's new child.
Mm-hmm.
What would you you alluded in your statement that probation's expensive, but you didn't specifically say that's the reason you wanted to remove therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could maybe enlighten me on why you believe you need to remove all your therapy when it seems to have been so successful.
Correct. It is expensive, and that's not the main reason for wanting to remove it, though. The main reason is, as she stated in the letter, that it's not really I don't really meet clinical criteria to be seen right now. We're just basically going to therapy because I have to. And I don't really have any major issues that PBS wasn't even involved. There's nothing going on in my life right now that I would feel I needed to seek therapy for. I feel like the little ups and downs of daily life are manageable with the support system that I have in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for coming, and just want to applaud you for all the progress that you have made so far. It's very impressive to see the things that you participated in, are participating in, and how you've distanced yourself from the challenges that you've had in your past, so that's very exciting to see. I just had a couple of questions. Do you currently have a sponsor?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you had this sponsor?
Since I was 8 days sober.
So
So over 5 years.
Over
The
5.
whole time it's been the same sponsor.
Okay. Could you just share a little bit with us how frequently do you meet with your sponsor or have communication with your sponsor?
Right. We text and call here and there. As far as meeting to go over steps and things of that nature, we're not really currently doing that. I did go, she was at the retreat in October that I attended, and I think I saw her in December. She's going through a tough time right now as far as her own divorce and her mother passing away during the holidays. So I'm kind of just giving her some space with all of that right now. So things have been a little bit different since that's been going on. But normally we talk regularly. We go to the retreat. She's been on every retreat I've been on with me. So she introduced me to the retreats. So she's really good friends with my other friend, Stacy, that's also sober, my friend Blanca. So we all get together.
Sure. Okay. Are you currently sponsoring anyone?
No, I'm not.
You're not? Okay. And just for confirmation's sake, I think I read in something that you had stated, I think it was in a personal letter that you would plan to continue to attend AA even if that wasn't a requirement of yours. That's something that would be a part of your life. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, as part of your self-care.
Right.
All right, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and you're sounding extremely strong. I enjoy hearing that. And I have to say, your ex-husband wrote a very compelling letter, and as he said, he had no reason to. He gained nothing from it, so he had nothing to gain from writing such a letter, and he has seen the worst and maybe now the best in you. And I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Just have one question. Please remind us, through therapy or whatever, what is your understanding why you drank in the past to get into trouble?
I believe that I drank to solve the problems caused by my drinking. I think I didn't have good coping skills during the time of 08 and 09. A lot of things were happening in our economy as well that were contributing to impacted stress for my entire family. Several people lost their homes, and there were multiple there was stress on several levels, and then going through a divorce and things of that nature. I just didn't have the coping skills, and alcohol became a crutch. And, you know, surprisingly, when you're going through a divorce, people seem to promote that. And so, you know, I kept thinking, okay, I'll get through this. Maybe I got to go to therapy. Maybe I got to do yoga. And then, you know, eventually it was like, no, you need to get sober. So, you know, that's when the realization came. But it was unable to manage, you know, extreme stress without alcohol.
So now you're saying that you have the coping skill and you can deal with it. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit just to summarize, you know, like what support system you have, what coping skill you have, and what self-care you have? So, you know, stress arises again, then you won't get into the same kind of problem.
I understand, yes. Well, like I said, there have been some very stressful things that have happened over the 5 years of my sobriety, and I've never gone back to drinking. Every time I've reached out, I've built such a strong support network of sober friends. Like I've said, there's 3 of them that I'm very close to, talk to daily, almost, you know, throughout the day, every day. So, and we get together. I see most of them. I see one of them, she lives closer, like at least once a week. And the other ones, maybe every other week for lunch and things like that, or we go to a meeting together and get coffee. So I have those supports as far as related to substance abuse in place. I have a sponsor, I have sober friends, I go to meetings. So that is very intact for me as far as we're thinking about recovery. But as far as other stressors, I do have a very involved, very close family that's supportive, and you know, they're part of my strengths as well. And, you know, I do a lot of things like for self-care, things that make me feel good. Like, you know, being promoted, working really hard at my job, that's important to me to be professional and develop my career. And as well as, you know, going to Orange Theory Fitness, working out, that, you know, sort of a stress reliever. So those are other things I engage in. So, thank you.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Neither do I, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
You are really good at overachieving. How do you know when it's too much?
I don't know if I would say it's too much right now. I'm just,
Not saying that it's too much right now. I'm saying, how would you know?
well, I think it's important to have a good work-life balance, and the position I'm in allows me that. I go to work at 7 a.m. and I'm done by 3:30. My son usually gets done with school at 3, but he does a study group after school for an hour, so it allows me the opportunity to pick him up at 4 o'clock. And even when I was promoted to this position, one of the first things I discussed with the director was, well, I want to keep my same schedule. I know I'll be on call at times and things of that nature, working in the outpatient program, but it was really important to me to have that same regular schedule so I can be there for my son in the evenings, take him to his practices, help him with homework, you know, have dinner with him. So those are things I'm mindful of. There have been other job opportunities that maybe pay more, but I was actually interviewing for one at the time when this position was about to be offered. And, you know, I had to weigh, do I want to make a little bit more money to work further away till 6 p.m., you know, deal with the toll roads, you know, do I want to do all that? Or do I want to stay with where I'm at and develop my career there, which allows me to have a better work-life balance? So that's something that I'm always very mindful of.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know if that's me or...
No, it's not. It's something with the system. I noticed that a lot of the way you talk about your using of alcohol being an inappropriate coping mechanism is very CBT. And as I looked at stuff in your documentation, it's very CBT. And I'm not seeing anything deeper, a deeper insight about, I don't know, it just seems a little too simple for me. Often when people use alcohol, it's a symptom of a deeper issue, not just they're overwhelmed. Certainly what was going on in your life was very overwhelming.
Right.
But often there are family of origin type issues that need working on, or something earlier in your childhood that need working on. And I'm not hearing any piece of that.
Right.
So I just wondered.
Well, to be honest, I actually have a really good family. I didn't have any trauma growing up. I had a very supportive family where any opportunity available to me would be given. And, you know, before going to AA, I mean, I went when I had the DUI, but I think I kind of thought of it, I mean, I was just doing it to get it over with then, and I wasn't committed to it. And I think I thought of it as something that, oh, people go here who have a lot of problems. And I've actually come to realize that not everyone who's an alcoholic has some major traumatic event in their life. I mean, some people, and like I stated in the letter, I wasn't always drinking alcoholically. It's something that developed more gradually through my 20s when stress was compounded and I was going through losing my marriage, losing 50% custody of my son, you know, and those things were just very difficult for me.
Okay. So how are you at dealing with your emotions and vulnerability and sadness or pain?
You know, I do a lot of reading on articles and things that are related to this field. I mean, they pop up all the time in my emails, and I'm always open to self-development and, you know, learning more about what triggers me, what's important to me. And I think I have a really strong set of values, which was instilled with my family growing up. And that's sort of, you know, my core of what directs me, stuff that I am passionate about, you know, I care about. It may sound a little CBT and surfacey, but, you know, the reason I got in this field was because of the struggles I had overcome. And I wanted to, you know, very passionately wanted to help other people overcome their struggles. So it wasn't just a bad coping skill, got to change it. You know, it took a lot of trial and error for about a year and a half there of trying to get sober before I actually, you know, was able to maintain it. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. I want to congratulate you on finishing your hours, since you said you're preparing to
Close.
take the test. Yeah, all right. That's a big milestone. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and answering all the questions. And so you definitely is a super mom, you know, trying to maintain a job and, you know, taking care of your son. So, and it's a lot of stress.
Correct.
Definitely. So my question, just maybe in a different angle than Dr. Brew has asked you. So let's talk a little bit about the alcoholism. Now, when did you start drinking?
I started drinking at around the age of 17. It was my senior year in high school, and it wasn't a regular thing. It was just kind of at parties on the weekends or things of that nature. Didn't really start like drinking regularly until I was probably 20 years old, working at a restaurant where a lot of people would go out afterwards and drink, and I would join them. And it was, I mean, I felt like I was drinking kind of like everyone else, you know, but I would put it down. I was very active with my education and fitness and things like that at the time, so it wasn't something I did every day or even every weekend. And eventually, you know, it became what it became.
So you mentioned many times that it's the stress that caused you, you know, using the alcohol to cope, right? So have you ever thought that, you know, you might be having some co-occurring mental health issue during that time when you're using alcohol also?
At that time, looking back now, I'm sure there probably was some depression involved there that I wasn't maybe totally aware of at the time, or maybe I was in survival mode, so I wasn't, you know, taking care of things correctly, obviously. So I would say that that's a correct statement.
Right. So now in that sense, the coping is not just, I mean, the alcohol is not really just about a coping, but it's also, you know, kind of like a manifestation, you know, of your depressed, you know, the level of the depression.
Correct.
So, so in that sense, you know, how do you address that? You know, I mean, have you tried to address, you know, the whole, you know, the mental health issues with your therapist? You know, because you're such a strong woman, you know, sometimes not going there, you know, it's probably easier, you know.
No, we have. We've definitely, in the beginning, we dived into a lot of stuff. I mean, my parents did get divorced when I was 10, but wasn't a traumatic event. I mean, everyone gets along. And so we did talk about some of those things for a while and sort of processed through that and touched on that. But those aren't things that upset me now or have any triggers for now or anything like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I don't have any questions, but I want to commend you for your over 5 years of sobriety, so.
Thank you.
Okay, any further board questions? No? Mr. Lee, anything else by way of questions? Okay, now's your opportunity to summarize your position if you wish.
Right.
Please.
Well, just to reiterate, I'm requesting that my AA meetings are dropped to once per week, which I was doing and maintaining my sobriety with just fine before being placed on probation, as well as my drug testing, if it could be dropped to 1 time per month, if that's possible. I run into people who are on probation at the testing place, and a lot of them tell me they do it. Everyone has different set of guidelines. So I just think, a lot of them seem to go once per month for some reason. And, I just think that's more congruent with where I'm at in my recovery for 5 years sober, and continuing to prove that and be dedicated to it. And then the removal of therapy. And then, and I think I had it in here, but I realized I moved the paper. But for the Exhibit 3, I think on the back page, 057, under Exhibit 3, he says, Ms. Everly is free of any symptoms of a major mental
Oh, slow down, please. Okay, start again.
He put, as noted, Ms. Everly is free of any symptoms of a major mental health disorder, including anxiety and depression. She's in complete remission of her alcoholism. Her psychological functioning is stable. She cares for her son, and her relationship with her mother appears to be solid. So, I think he's on the same page of my therapist and what I've continued to state myself, that I don't have any psychological disorders. I don't abuse alcohol. I'm just continuing to, move through my life. And, if the terms aren't adjusted at all, that's fine. I'll still do them because I want to be a therapist. But, I just feel like that would be a little bit more fair reflection of where I'm at in my recovery at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, the matter's submitted. The record is closed. The court reporter is going to give you a form if you're inclined to order a transcript. And I'll just repeat what I've said to the others. The board will meet today in executive session, decide your petition, and they will issue a written order in due course.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks again.
So, what is the pleasure of the board in terms of, it's 12:08, we have one petitioner remaining. My preference would be that we maybe take a quick stretch break and then hear the remaining petitioner and then break for lunch. Can everyone manage that?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's just take a quick, 5-minute stretch break, and we'll come back for the last petitioner.
We have 3 cases.
Record.
Okay, on the record, in the fourth petition today filed by Valerie Rachel? Is that right?
Rochelle.
Rochelle, okay, I guessed wrong on that one. And Trezise, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and this is a petition for early termination of probation or modification of the terms of probation, is that correct? Okay, and this matter bears case number, agency case number 2002-015-001192. Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2019-010825. My name is Carl Engelman, Administrative Law Judge assigned to sit with the board today. The members of the board who have been present in the prior 3 petitions remain present. Mr. Lee, would you state your appearance for the record, please?
Stanton Lee from the Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you. And Ms. Trezise, I've asked the other petitioners, I'll ask you the same question. Did you understand that had you wished and at your own expense, you could have been represented by an attorney in these proceedings?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and you're going to represent yourself?
I am.
Okay. And you've watched the proceedings? You know how this goes?
Yes.
Okay. All right then, Mr. Lee, proceed. And should I say also that I've asked Ms. Trezise to look over the exhibits, and I'm going to ask you, do you have any objection to my sealing, because this is the request of Mr. Lee, the mental evaluation documents that are contained within the exhibits?
I have no objection.
Okay, so I'll grant that order. And do you have any problem with any of the documents 1 through 6 within this exhibit binder?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Lee?
Good afternoon, board members, Your Honor. I'm here pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. I'm here in a non-adversarial capacity and am here to assist the board in eliciting information from the petitioner so that the board has adequate information to make a decision today. Given the preliminaries that you just went over, Your Honor, I would ask that exhibits 1 through 6 be admitted into evidence.
Okay, 1 through 6 are received in evidence, and I'll leave 7 marked for identification and grant the protective order requested.
With that, I have a summary of this case.
All right, please.
Petitioner was issued an associate marriage and family therapist intern registration on or about April 26, 2016, and the registration was in full force and effect at all times. A statement of issues was filed on September 11, 2015, due to a conviction on June 16, 2011 for battery. The board adopted a stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which immediately revoked, stayed, and placed the petitioner on probation for 3 years, with optional and standard terms and conditions effective January 15, 2016. The probation was told from September 8, 2017 through November 20, 2017 for failure to practice, and the new anticipated date of completion for probation is July 7, 2019. As of October 17, 2017, the petitioner was issued a licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 102694, which is current and active with an expiration date of February 28, 2021. The current status of probation is as follows. Psychological evaluation was completed April 15, 2016. Psychotherapy quarterly reports, full compliance. Remedial education. Coursework was due to be completed by April 26, 2017. Petitioner received a non-compliance notice on October 17, 2017, because she was missing 12 of the required 30 hours. Petitioner completed the remaining hours as of December 22, 2017. The standard terms and conditions, including quarterly reports and reimbursement costs, are as follows. Petitioner received a non-compliance notice on August 15, 2018 for failure to pay the reimbursement costs of probation in the amount of $1,200, which was due by July 7, 2018. After receiving the notice of non-compliance, petitioner paid the reimbursement by October 12, 2018. As noted earlier, petitioner seeks an early termination of probation, or in the alternative, a modification of term 2, reducing the required psychotherapy from once weekly to once monthly. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Trezise, you wish to address the board? All right, would you stand, please, and raise your right hand to be sworn? Upon the swear or affirm any testimony you shall give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Valerie Rochelle Trezise.
Okay, what would you like to say to the board?
I'm going to be reading a statement. I will make sure to do that slowly so that everybody can understand what I'm saying. So first, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present myself in front of you today. I'm here today to request that my terms of probation be terminated early. My probation terms are due to terminate in 5 months on July 7th, 2019. But by the time I am notified of your decision, I will only have a few short months left of my probation terms. Regardless of this decision that is made here today, I felt that it was important for me to come before you as part of my own process to close this chapter in my life. I feel it is important for me to briefly explain the incident that led to these probationary terms, my rehabilitation process, and my justification as to why I am safe to practice and not a danger to our public. On October 2nd, 2010, I was arrested for engaging in a physical altercation with my ex-husband's fiancée. She pressed charges and I was arrested. There were many events that led up to this altercation, some that may feel justified in my actions at that time. On October 3rd, 2010, I was contacted by a family law attorney and was told that I was due in court Monday, October 4th. I had no clue what this was about, but presented to court on Monday. It was at that time I was brought before a family law judge on an ex parte hearing that claimed my ex-husband believed I was a danger to my children because of the physical altercation. The judge ruled in his favor on the emergency order and stated that as long as I had a criminal case open, that I would have my children removed from my custody until the case was resolved in the criminal court. It was at that time that I saw how slow our justice system works. I did not see my children for the rest of October, the entire month of November, and was finally allowed supervised visits during Christmas, where we celebrated in a small room with a random stranger watching my children open their presents. It was not until June 2011 that custody was returned to me. However, this was only because I agreed to plead guilty to the misdemeanor charge of battery. I could not endure allowing the criminal case to go to trial. I did not want to wait any longer. I wanted my 2 children back in my custody. The criminal court assigned me 240 hours of community service, 3 years of formal probation, 36 classes of anger management, and I had to pay restitution and all court fees. The terms were all completed within the allotted time, and my record has been officially expunged. I entered graduate school in August of 2012. I graduated in November of 2014. And in 2014, the BBS initially denied my request for an intern registration. When the BBS denied my initial request for an intern number, a lot of unresolved feelings surrounding the incident resurfaced. Although I had seen a therapist throughout this process, I couldn't help but notice that there was still so much that needed to be worked on. I felt like I was being punished again. I felt resentment towards the board for what I felt like was judgment based on a written report that portrayed me as a violent monster. Most of all, I felt like all the work that I had done to earn my master's in counseling was going to be a waste. My stubborn nature would not allow me to give up. When I was granted my intern number with the probationary terms that accompanied it, it was then that my real process began. While I was angry and resentful, I was determined. I completed the psychological evaluation. I completed the anger management. I do want to address that it was a few months late, and that was due to financial hardships and not being able to afford the upfront payment of the class. I shamefully notified each employer of my status with the BBS. I lost job opportunities because of being seen as a risk to employ. I completed the terms that were given to me. I checked off all the boxes that needed to be done. However, the real growth came from the weekly therapy that I know. I know that had I not been required by the board to do this, that I would not have made the progress that I have made to this day. I have an amazing therapist that I have seen weekly for almost 3 years now. He has challenged my own cognitions and judgments that I had about myself surrounding this incident. He has challenged my own cognitions and judgments that I have about myself even before this incident. He has pushed me to look at the core issues that led me to make such an impulsive decision. He has assisted me in working through my anger and resentments. He assured me that this process was not a personal attack on my character, but to ensure that I am safe to practice with the public. The monster in that police report was only a monster because I deemed her one. That the judgment I felt were my own judgments. That people are forgiving, and I needed to forgive myself. That all the times I wanted to give up on this process, that this all happened for a reason, and to find the deeper meaning in it all. As clinicians, we speak a lot about managing our own issues so that they do not interfere with our clients' progress. To use self-disclosure with much discretion, and only when it is to benefit the client and their progress. To be judgment-free and to provide a safe place. I do believe that I was physically never a danger to practice within my capacity as a licensed marriage and family therapist. However, when looking at some of the issues that my own clients have presented with, I know that had it not been for me working through my own core issues, I would not be the strong and confident clinician that I am today. I feel that my letters of recommendation speak to that, and that the letter from my therapist proves that I have worked through the core issues surrounding this incident. My plan moving forward is to continue to see my therapist at my own discretion, because I want to continue to grow and not because I feel like I am forced to. I will continue to meet with my consultation group monthly in order to discuss difficult cases and to manage any countertransference that may arise. I will practice self-care by engaging in activities that I enjoy. I will continue my education by expanding my clinical knowledge in areas of interest. I will continue to be a responsible clinician that follows our professional code of ethics. In closing, I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to present before you today. More importantly, for granting me the ability to practice in the profession that I love, and for essentially forcing me to work through core issues that may have potentially hindered my ability to be the professional therapist that I am today. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you have any criminal convictions that have not previously been disclosed to the board?
No, I do not.
Have you been the subject of any out-of-state disciplinary proceedings against any professional license that you hold since the statement of issues was filed in September of 2015?
No.
Are there any current criminal or civil charges pending against you in this state or in any other jurisdiction?
No.
Are you currently seeking treatment with anyone other than Cordell Ball?
I have had EMDR sessions with Dr. Ari Shalabali. Dr. Ari Shalabali.
Could you spell the last name for the record, please?
Oh, that would be good. So it's Shabali. I believe that's how you spell it.
And what type of treater is
It is,
Shabali?
it's a form of therapy called EMDR, and what we do with those sessions is we focus on trauma that I've experienced in my life. So we work on desensitizing those traumatic events in my life.
Your treatment with Shabali is on your own?
That was voluntarily. My current therapist and I have worked through a lot of issues through talk therapy within the last couple of years that I have been with him. And I noticed, and I brought to his attention as well, that I felt like there was just something blocking my ability to really access my emotions in certain capacities when it came to certain subjects that we would talk about. So I am I'm an EMDR therapist, so I felt that it was important that I utilize the resources that I have, and so I sought that I know to assist myself in my own process.
Do you know what the abbreviation EMDR stands for?
It's eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing.
How long have you been seeing Shabali?
So EMDR is a short-term solution-focused therapy. I had a total of 3 sessions, and that has been completed.
When was that last completed?
That was completed we're in February now, so that was probably completed in November of 2018.
And it was limited to 3 sessions?
It was 3 sessions. Again, it's a very solution-focused form of therapy.
What were the types of things that you covered in EMDR therapy?
So I went in working on my inability to access certain emotions surrounding attachment issues with my mother, and uncovering that brought up some repressed traumas that I didn't realize had such an impact on my process. And so within those 3 intensive sessions, we were able to essentially file them back into my brain where they needed to go, so that they didn't have such an impact on my current life.
When you say it had an impact on your processes, the prior traumas, what do you mean by that?
The impact being my inability to really access emotion. There was progress that was made through talk therapy with Cordell Ball, and I noticed that there were areas that I still felt reluctant to speak about, and even with him challenging me to speak about those things, I just couldn't really pinpoint what was happening and why I had the inability to do that. And so with EMDR, you work on a target memory, and so I targeted a very simple memory from my childhood of my mother not shaming me, but I had come home with a B on my report card, the rest were A's, and she said, why wasn't that last one an A? And so that access memory networks, that if you look at like a neuron, there's that big core memory and there's a bunch of tentacles attached to it. And so that played a role in self-worth issues that I had, confidence issues that I had, anxiety issues that I had, issues surrounding needing to overachieve. So in a simplistic way, it impacted a lot of my my insights that talk therapy wasn't able to access.
Those different aspects that you've just identified, how did that come into play into the situation that resulted in the criminal conviction?
So the criminal conviction, know that you guys have all read my stipulation and my statement, but my ex-husband had an affair with my daughter's preschool teacher, and that brought up a lot of self-worth issues. Was that what was I not providing in the marriage? I wasn't good enough? A lot of personalization, a lot of internalizing what had happened, and being able to do talk therapy with my therapist, I uncovered a lot of issues that I hadn't worked through, are, I would say, events in my childhood that I didn't even realize had such an impact, because when you're a child, you don't really know that that's not the norm of how families operate. And so doing EMDR therapy really assisted me in my self-worth. I can now, I don't harbor resentments like I used to. It really did desensitize those strong emotions that I felt, those resentments that I felt, me victimizing myself, and it really changed the cognition of being a victim to owning my actions, being accountable for my actions, and forgiving myself for my actions, and knowing that people make mistakes and we can move forward from them.
Earlier, you indicated that you had attended anger treatment or anger management treatment.
Yes.
Correct? Was that part of the criminal case that you had to complete those classes?
So the criminal case ordered me 36 classes of anger management. Each class was a total of an hour and a half long. And then the BBS ordered me, I believe it was 18 units, which equates to a certain amount of hours of more anger management. So I have had a lot of anger management.
With the benefit of the things that you've learned in your other forms of therapy, are you able to relate any of it or bundle it all together with the anger management classes and what you learned there and what prompted the episode to occur?
Absolutely. I think what it came down to, and I mean, there's so much to it, working through my own process, but tying it all together and with the anger management and with the therapy, at that time in my life, I was at a place of, I felt like I was out of control. I wasn't able to control my husband's actions. I wasn't able to control the vindictiveness. I wasn't able to control the fact that I would pick up my 3-year-old daughter at the time and unknowingly have conversations with this woman who was sleeping with my husband behind my back. And I think what it came down to was I was angry. I felt betrayed. And with the anger management, I've really learned that the only thing I can control in this life is me and my reactions to situations. And I can't control other people's actions. And because if they do something that I feel is wrongdoing to myself, that's no reflection of who I am as a person. That is their stuff that they need to work on. And in this whole process, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken away.
So your petition seeks an early termination of probation, but your probation comes to an end fairly shortly.
Yes.
Do you have any plans as far as ongoing treatment after the completion of probation?
Yes, so I had initially, I didn't know that I was eligible for early termination. So I had initially went in just wanting to reduce my therapy to 1 time a month. And then after learning and speaking to my monitor that I was eligible for early termination, I am requesting early termination. My plan moving forward is absolutely to tap into all the resources that I have available to me. My therapist and I will continue to see one another, but more so at my discretion when I feel like it's appropriate and needed, rather than it being a weekly thing. I feel like at this point in my process, with all the insights that I've gained and all the progress that I've made, monthly maintenance sessions would be appropriate at this time. And obviously, if something pressing happens in my life, to then go more frequently. But at this time, I feel like I'm at a place in my life where it's not needed once a week.
In your opening statement, you did refer to different things that you do in your life now to address things like stress.
Yes.
What are other things that you do to address like daily stress levels and addressing the issues that you do experience on a day-to-day basis that are out of your control?
Yeah, I mean, everything is out of my control, really. And again, like I said, the only thing I can control is myself and how I respond to it, or how I let it affect me. So I do use a lot of mindfulness. What's that space? There's a lot of mindfulness techniques, white light technique, just really tapping into my senses, essential oils, massages. I have 4 children, so hanging out with my children is a breakaway from work, and then work is a breakaway from my children. So, just being able to really have that balance. But really, I think overall, my coping mechanisms would be to continue my therapy on an as-needed basis, to continue to engage in mindfulness meditations. I use the app Headspace daily. I do grounding techniques in the morning before I get out of bed. I do grounding techniques at night. I do progressive muscle relaxations to kind of ward off the stress for the day. And I'm overall just in a calmer place, probably because of all of the anger management that I've had to do, but also because I've really been able to take this opportunity and grow from it and not allow it to hinder me.
Aside from your current therapist, are there other persons in your life that you can rely upon for seeking support?
Absolutely. So, of course, I have my family. My husband is amazing. My kids give me a break from work, like I stated. My dad is probably my biggest, I call him like my grounder, because he kind of just has a way of telling me like it is, like, okay, this is what you got to do, and do it. And so he's the one I go to when I need that reality check. I have amazing coworkers. My boss is very supportive. She encourages mental health days. She, there's times where she recognizes like, hey, okay, you need to go. You look like you're kind of overwhelmed. Why don't you go take a break? Or, so she's constantly checking in. My colleague that I work very closely with, him and I have a great relationship, so he's of support. I have 2 other colleagues that work at a different site, but they are also a lot of support. I have a lot of close-knit people. My circle is very small, but we're very tight-knit. And in regards to, and again, my therapist, I also have a lot of therapist friends. I do monthly consultation with a group of therapists to kind of decompress and talk about our own countertransference, talk about hard cases, and just kind of unload. And with the mindfulness piece, we can unload and leave it where we unload it and not carry it with us.
What is your current employment?
I work for Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach. I am a group facilitator in an adolescent program that operates under the dialectical behavioral therapy model. Dialectical behavioral therapy model. And I also own my own private practice in Newport Beach.
How long have you been in private practice?
I've been in private practice working under other people since 2016. I started my own private practice renting space in August of 2017, and just January I was able to afford my own office and am completely branched out from others. I'm independently working in Newport Beach as of January 1, 2019.
So you spoke a little bit about the support network that you have available to you at work. What type of support network do you have available to you in private practice?
So I am in an office, even though we're all independent sole proprietors. I have 2 colleagues in the suite that I work in. So I'm often encountering them. We have 10 minutes in between sessions, so there's not a lot of interaction. But this is where my monthly consultation group comes in, as well as I have a few therapist friends that I speak to almost on a daily basis, just kind of through text message or talking on the phone, just touching base. If something really pressing happens throughout my week where I have a really tough client or I'm feeling, stressed for whatever reason, I have a really good therapist friend who we kind of call and just decompress with one another, and then we give each other like, okay, use this mindfulness technique or this meditation, and just give each other that kind of support.
With the hindsight that you have now and the skills that you have available to you, do you have any insight as to how you got to the place as far as anger or stress or whatever that caused you to act out at basically a children's sporting event?
Yes, it was at my children's sporting event, and my 2 children were present at the time. Prior to that event, there was probably about a 6-month period of me learning that my ex-husband was having an affair with my daughter's preschool teacher at the daycare center that we had taken her to. During that time, I had received many harassing phone calls from her, telling me how bad of a mother I was. I did take the liberty to contact her supervisor because I felt that it was unethical for her to be fraternizing with one of the parents of we were customers of the establishment, and I felt like it was inappropriate. And so because she was released from her job there, that then unleashed her anger onto me. So there were events where it was my snack day, and that had been something that my ex-husband and I had established. I'm mom, I'll bring snacks, I'll do the team mom thing. And the day of that event, she brought snacks on my snack day. So there was a lot of boundaries that were crossed when it comes to that relationship. My son is ADHD. He was taking medications. She would show up with my ex to our doctor's appointments. And she was girlfriend at the time. So there was just a lot of underlying jabs that would happen that I took personally, and that angered me. And being mama bear when my children were the ones that were suffering from it, I felt like I had to protect my cubs. And in that moment, that impulsive decision to engage in the physical altercation was a mistake with my children being present, absolutely, and I do recognize that. However, like I stated in my response, I felt like at that time in my life, I felt that my anger was justified. Looking back in retrospect, I know that it wasn't just about what she was doing to me. It was a lot of stuff that I hadn't processed from growing up. I personalized a lot of it. And so I'm in a place right now where they're divorced, but she's still in their lives as stepmom. And I look at it and there's still underlying jabs that happen. And my response is, I'm just really glad my kids have more people to love them. Whereas before, I felt very territorial. And I no longer feel that way.
So with the tools that you have now, looking back, what are things that you could have done to not have acted out at that sporting event?
Walked away. The very skills that I teach my adolescents today, take a step back, observe the situation, proceed mindfully. Like, I should have walked away. I shouldn't have engaged in conversations with her when she would come up to me with, your kids don't like you, or she would say these snide things. I should have been the bigger person. I know that now, and I am that person now. I wasn't that person then, and I can recognize that, definitely.
Do you have a contingency plan in place for when life's next snowball comes and is barreling at you?
Yeah, I've had a lot of life snowball events happen in the interim since that event. It's kind of a running joke with my friends and my family. Like, I've had a heck of a lot of anger management, right? And I can now recognize that I used to say my anger goes from 0 to 10 and like there's no in between. And that's false. There is an in between. And I'm able to recognize what that in between is now. So when my stomach feels like there's a knot in it, when my face gets hot. So there's body cues that indicate to me you need to take a step away and really recollect yourself. And this doesn't only happen if I get angry. It happens with stress. It happens with anxiety. It happens with depression. When I am able to know that I feel out of balance, those are the times I tap into my resources.
Those are all the questions I have at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, I think we're back on this, right? Yeah.
I don't have questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really want to comment how far you have come, and you really are an evidence that therapy works.
It does.
It really does.
It does.
I just have one small question.
Sure.
So if the board grant your petition to get off probation, what is your professional plan?
I would like to be able to accept insurance in my private practice. My long-term goal is to be a contractor and own my own, I own my own private practice, but to be primarily sole private practice, to be my own boss, to allow myself the flexibility to make more leisure time for my family. Right now, being on probation, I am not able to be credentialed with insurance panels. And so that if this is granted or if I wait until July, that will be my first step in furthering my career and being able to reach other people as well.
Will you consider doing full-time private practice?
At some point, I would. Right now, my insurance benefits are great, and I do have, like I said, 4 kids. So I think the longer-term goal is just primarily private practice, but right now I am happy where I'm at.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No questions. I just wanted to echo what Christina said. I really see the hard work you've done, and you tell a coherent narrative. I can see that those walls have been melted and that you're fully in touch with yourself. So I can see how you now know how to self-regulate and be more self-aware. Congratulations.
Thank you. That really does mean a lot to hear someone else say that. Thank you.
So I have no questions. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
No question, just good luck with your insurance application because that takes some time.
I know.
But thank you for being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
No questions. I just wanted to make a comment. You're a very skilled public speaker, and I think, are you the one who won awards for public?
I did. I did speech and debate in college, yes.
It shows. You're very,
Thank
very.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, and I echo all the compliment my colleagues given you. Just out of curiosity, when you look back at that incident, can you still forgive that person, or you still feel any remorse what you did to her?
I can forgive her because I honestly have learned that forgiveness isn't about her or her actions towards me. Forgiveness is me being able to let go of that burden that she was able to have. I gave her too much control over my life. And so by forgiving her, I've been able to forgive myself and to really release that weight, yes. And I don't harbor any resentments towards her. That's the person that she chooses to be. And it's out of my control, and it's a reflection of her and not a reflection of me.
But do you regret what you did to her, though?
I regret it in a sense that I think, yeah, absolutely, I regret the action that I took. In hindsight, though, I believe that if it wasn't for that event, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have been forced to look at all of the underlying issues that caused that. So do I regret it? Yes, absolutely. I think I've grown from it. And so with regret comes growth and change, and that's what I'm embracing.
Thank you. I asked those questions because I just wanted to cross all the T's, not all the I's.
Absolutely. No, I understand. Thank you.
I also want to echo everyone's applauding you, and I think your clients will be very fortunate to have your insight, and I have no questions.
Thank you so much.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say, when we talk about therapists being wounded healers and taking their life circumstances and actually growing from them and learning and then utilizing them to help other people, you really embody that. And it's always refreshing to have probationers come up and be able to not necessarily articulate as well as you did, but to be able to share with us how they have rehabilitated their lives, and you are a model for that. And so I think along with your private practice, I think you probably would be a fantastic professor with new students coming into the field. So that's just something to hold. But thank you for coming.
I'm currently in my doctorate program, so I'm working on that.
All righty then. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you for coming in. I love your sense of humor. I like the way you presented. It was honesty. You weren't trying to be defensive. And when you made that comment, I think that those defensive classes actually made me happy. It's a shout out to anger management.
Absolutely.
Classes.
Absolutely, yes.
But I really appreciate you coming in and speaking, think truth to power.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, any further board questions? No? Anything else, Mr. Lee, by way of questions?
No, Your
Okay,
Honor.
you wish to summarize your position before we close the record?
I just think in consideration, I'm asking for early termination of probation and to consider that it was an isolated event, but from this event, it's changed the trajectory of my life. And this event happened in October of 2010. This was the reason why I got into the field of marriage and family therapy. And so, regardless of the decision that you guys come to, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to hear myself as well as my colleagues that presented today. I know you guys are busy people, and so I just wanted to say thank you for that opportunity.
Okay, thank you for appearing. With that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed. You can get a form for requesting a transcript from the court reporter. She'll give you a document for that purpose. And I'll just repeat what I said to the others. The board will meet in executive session today. We'll decide the matter, and we'll send you a written decision. I hope you get it if it's favorable before the end of your probation. So.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you.
So at this point, the board will go into closed session. We will be